In the evolving landscape of global geopolitics, the traditional focus on Asia-Pacific pivots and Middle Eastern energy corridors has given way to a new axis of tension, the Northern Arc. This conceptual framework links Greenland in the high north with Ukraine on Europe's eastern flank, highlighting how climate-driven changes, resource competitions, and security imperatives are reshaping international relations. As of early 2026, the Arctic's melting ice, termed the Arctic Paradox, has unlocked unprecedented economic opportunities while exacerbating strategic rivalries. Greenland emerges as the hardware provider for green technologies and military advancements, boasting vast rare earth mineral reserves essential for electric vehicles, EVs, renewable energy and defense systems. Ukraine conversely serves as the software of European security, acting as a bulwark against authoritarian expansionism while holding significant deposits of lithium, titanium and graphite. This video delves into the diplomatic escalations, mineral frontiers, naval chokepoints and trade revolutions defining this shift, analysing their implications for global stability in a multipolar world. Additional details on recent developments in Greenland's key mining projects, the U.S. Ukraine Minerals Partnership and Northern Sea Route usage statistics have been integrated to provide a comprehensive update as of January 2026. The post-Cold War era's geopolitical map, dominated by the US, pivot to Asia, and the strategic chokepoints of Middle Eastern oil corridors like the Strait of Hormuz, is undergoing a profound transformation. By 2026, the locus of global security and resource competition has migrated northward, forming what analysts term the Northern Arc, a continuum of interconnected tensions stretching from Greenland's icy expanses to Ukraine's contested borders. This shift is propelled by three interlocking forces, the Arctic Paradox, where climate change simultaneously devastates ecosystems and unveils economic windfalls. The intensifying race for critical minerals vital to the green energy transition and advanced weaponry, and the erosion of the post-1991 maritime order amid rising great power rivalries. The Arctic Paradox encapsulates the grim irony of global warming. As sea ice diminishes at rates 4 times the global average, new shipping lanes emerge, reducing transit times between Asia and Europe by up to 40% and slashing fuel costs. Yet this accessibility heightens militarization, with Russia expanding its northern fleet and China positioning itself as a near-Arctic state through investments in infrastructure and research. Greenland, long a peripheral Danish territory under US protection, now stands as a contested prize, its mineral wealth drawing overtures from Washington, Beijing and European capitals. Ukraine, embroiled in a protracted conflict since Russia's 2022 invasion, mirrors this dynamic on the eastern flank, where control over resources and transit routes intersects with NATO's eastward expansion. This Northern Arc is not merely geographical, it represents a convergence of hardware, physical resources and infrastructure, and software, security architectures and alliances in the 21st century power struggle. The US shift of Greenland from European Command, EUCOM, to Northern Command, NORTHCOM, in June 2025 underscores its homeland defence priority, while NATO's incorporation of Finland, April 2023, and Sweden, March 2024, has transformed the Baltic Sea into a NATO lake, linking Arctic defences with Ukrainian sovereignty. As geopolitical tensions simmer, evidenced by Russian submarine incursions and Chinese Arctic voyages, the Northern Arc risks becoming a flashpoint, demanding nuanced diplomacy to balance exploitation with environmental stewardship. Recent updates, including progress on Greenland's Tanbreeze project, the operationalization of the U.S. Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund, and record Northern Sea Route transits in 2025 further illuminate the Arc's evolving dynamics. Greenland, the world's largest island and a self-governing territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, has evolved from a Cold War-era outpost to the epicenter of Western Hemisphere resource contests. Its transformation is rooted in geological bounty and strategic geography, positioning it as the hardware vault for the global shift towards sustainable energy and cutting-edge military technologies. With climate change accelerating ice melt, Greenland's once inaccessible deposits are now viable, attracting investment amid heightened US-China competition. diplomatic escalations in recent years have set the stage for intensified resource extraction and military posturing, framing the island's role in broader great power dynamics. Diplomatic frictions surrounding Greenland reached a critical juncture in 2026, driven by US strategic assertiveness and competing international interests. The pivotal move came in June 2025 when the United States reassigned oversight of Greenland from the European Command, EUCOM, to the Northern Command, NORTHCOM, a decision that explicitly elevated the island to a homeland defence priority. This jurisdictional shift was motivated by growing concerns over Arctic security threats, including Russian militarization and Chinese economic inroads, and it allowed for more direct US military integration, such as enhanced basing rights at Patuxent Space Base, formerly Thule Air Base. The base, already hosting US Space Force radar systems for missile warning, saw expanded operations in 2025 to 2026, including joint exercises with Danish forces to simulate Arctic defence scenarios. Renewed rhetoric from Washington about purchasing Greenland, echoing former President Trump's 2019 proposal, further inflamed tensions. In January 2026, high-level White House meetings with Danish officials reportedly included veiled threats of unilateral US actions if Denmark did not accelerate militarization efforts on the island. This rhetoric stemmed from strategic imperatives. Greenland's position controls key Arctic routes and resources, making it indispensable for US supply chain security. However, it sparked backlash in Copenhagen and Nuuk, Greenland's capital, where leaders emphasized the island's autonomy under the 2009 Self-Rule Act. Greenlandic Prime Minister Mute B. Egede publicly rejected any sovereignty transfer, citing historical colonial grievances and prioritizing indigenous Inuit rights. China's growing footprint has exacerbated these escalations. Beijing's Polar Silk Road initiative, announced in 2018, has led to investments in Greenlandic infrastructure, including airports and research stations, often framed as scientific but suspected of dual-use potential. In response, the US has leveraged economic tools such as Export-Import Bank financing to block Chinese acquisitions and promote Western-aligned development. Within the Arctic Council, these dynamics have created deep fissures. Russia's suspension from the forum in 2022 left a void, but ongoing disputes over militarization, such as Russia's reactivation of Soviet-era bases, have polarized remaining members. The 2026 Arctic Council ministerial meeting in Reykjavik highlighted these strains, with US pressure on Denmark to limit Chinese participation clashing with calls for inclusive diplomacy. Independence movements in Greenland have gained momentum, with polls showing 60% support for full sovereignty by 2030, fueled by resource revenues and frustration with Danish oversight. These escalations underscore Greenland's pivot from periphery to prize, setting the diplomatic context for its mineral and strategic exploitation. Building on the diplomatic tensions, Greenland's mineral wealth has become a focal point of international competition. Estimates place the island's rare earth oxides, REOs, at 1.5 million tons of proven reserves, with potential totals exceeding 36 million tons, securing its position as the 8th largest globally. These minerals are indispensable for EV motors, wind turbines and defense technologies, driving a scramble amid global supply chain vulnerabilities. Two projects dominate this frontier, Tanbreez and Kvanefjeld. The Tanbreez project, secured by Australia's Critical Metals Corp in 2024, represents a breakthrough in heavy rare earth element, HREE, extraction. Situated in southern Greenland's Kringlerne deposit, it contains an estimated 28.2 million tons of REOs, with 27% HREEs, such as dysprosium and terbium, elements critical for permanent magnets in EVs. This HRE concentration is nearly tenfold that of US counterparts like Mountain Pass, where grades average 5.96%. Development milestones in 2025 included a preliminary economic assessment forecasting annual production of 8,000 tons by 2027 to 2029, supported by a $120 million US Export-Import Bank loan, the first such overseas mining investment under the Trump administration. This funding aimed to diversify from China's 90% plus control of global rare earth processing. Challenges include low ore grades, 0.38%, requiring innovative hydrometallurgical processes and Arctic logistics, sub-zero temperatures and seasonal ice restrict operations to summer months. Environmental assessments emphasise low radioactivity, positioning Tanbreez as a green alternative. As of January 2026, Critical Metals has approved construction of a multi-use storage and pilot facility in Kokotok, with initial production eyed for 85,000 tonnes annually, scaling to 425,000 tonnes. Offtake agreements cover 75% of output, with the remainder expected to be secured in Q1 2026, potentially allowing the US to control up to 50% of the rare earth market outside China. Kvanefjeld, one of the world's largest undeveloped REO deposits, is more politically fraught. With over 11 million tonnes of reserves, including 370,000 tonnes of HREESS and associated uranium, it has been stalled since Greenland's 2021 uranium mining ban. Developer energy transition. Minerals is pursuing $11.5 billion in arbitration against the ban, claiming violations of investment treaties. Pre-ban studies from 2015 highlighted superior ore grades, 1.43%, but uranium co-occurrence raises contamination risks for nearby fjords and communities like Narsak. China's Shenghe Resources holds a significant stake, fueling US concerns over strategic dependencies. Diplomatic pressures have influenced local policy. The ban reflects Inuit-led environmental priorities, yet global REO demand, expected to triple by 2040, pushes for reconsideration. Recent arbitration dismissals in late 2025 have led to ongoing court challenges, highlighting Europe's delayed scramble for strategic minerals. Other projects like Eclipse Metals Ivitut and Alba Resources Motzfeldt add to the mix, but none are commercially operational yet due to permitting and financing hurdles. These projects illustrate the interplay of diplomacy and economics, where US interventions in 2025 thwarted Chinese bids, reinforcing Western supply chains amid escalating tensions. The diplomatic backdrop amplifies Greenland's military significance, particularly through the Greenland-Iceland United Kingdom Gjuki Gap, a resurrected Cold War chokepoint controlling North Atlantic access. This underwater passage is the main route for Russia's Northern Fleet submarines to project power into the Atlantic, heightening subsurface warfare risks. By 2026, NATO has ramped up defences with next-generation autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, to detect advanced Russian submarines, including the 6 Borei-class nuclear vessels in the Northern Fleet. Russian patrols have surged to Cold War levels, with exercises simulating disruptions to NATO supply lines. The gap's bathymetry, deep trenches and variable salinity, favours stealth, prompting US and UK deployments of P-8 Poseidon aircraft from Iceland's Keflavik Base for Anti-Submarine Warfare, ASW. Joint operations in 2025 included sonar buoy drops and drone surveillance, addressing NATO's frigate shortages. Undersea infrastructure adds vulnerability. Fibre optic cables traversing the seabed carry 98% of transatlantic data, susceptible to hybrid threats. Russian vessels, ostensibly for oceanography, have mapped these cables, raising sabotage fears amid Ukraine-inspired tactics. NATO's countermeasures involve unmanned systems and patrols with Norway and the UK. Greenland's Patuffik base integrates space domain awareness, linking subsurface threats to missile defence. These elements, framed by diplomatic escalations, position the GI-UK gap as a frontline in digital and naval warfare. Ukraine, positioned at the fault line between Western democracies and the Russo-Chinese axis, functions as the software counterpoint to Greenland's hardware, programming Europe's security architecture through resilience, asymmetric innovation, and resource integration. Ukraine's mineral vault includes Europe's largest titanium reserves, 7% global, approximately 500,000 tonnes of lithium, and substantial graphite, up to 20% of global potential. The U.S. Ukraine Minerals Partnership, signed in April 2025, created a reconstruction investment fund, directing 50% of royalties from new mining licenses into Western-led ventures. Initial funding of $150 million targets titanium for aerospace and lithium for batteries, though Russian occupation affects half the deposits. Tenders for the Dobra lithium site in 2025 mark early progress, integrating Ukraine into global supply chains. As of October 2025, 6 months post-signing, the fund has prioritised mining as a national recovery pillar, with plans for core drilling starting January 2026 on key minerals like uranium, germanium and tungsten. The fund's board finalised administrative steps in December 2025, enabling investments from early 2026. This agreement, ratified by Ukraine's parliament in May 2025, includes supplemental pacts and positions the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation to replicate the model globally as per the financial year 2026 NDAA. It underscores Ukraine's diplomatic triumph, securing U.S. commitment amid peace processes. As the breadbasket of the world, Ukraine's pre-war grain exports sustained 400 million people globally, influencing food prices amid Black Sea blockades. Disrupted energy transit routes, once piping Russian gas to Europe, are being rerouted westward through reconstruction efforts. Ukraine's asymmetric warfare innovations, such as naval drones, neutralizing the Russian Black Sea fleet, provide blueprints for Arctic defense. Operations like the 2025 Spiderweb campaign damaged 40 Russian aircraft via remote strikes, adaptable to Arctic scenarios for nations like Norway or Greenland. These tactics emphasize cost-effective deterrence against numerically superior forces. The Arctic paradox, melting ice enabling economic shortcuts amid environmental peril, redefines global trade, with the Northern Sea Route, NSR, emerging as a new Suez. NSR transits from Yokohama to Rotterdam shorten routes from 11,200 to 6,500 nautical miles, yielding 40% distance reductions and 30% savings in fuel and emissions. China's 2025 NSR activity included 14 container voyages, with the first direct China-UK shipment in 20 days. Overall transits reached 103, transporting 3.2 million tonnes, bolstered by Russia-China infrastructure pacts. These efficiencies, however, amplify environmental risks, including black carbon emissions accelerating melt. In 2025, voyages increased 6.2% year-over-year, with deadweight up 1% to 6.23 million tonnes. Container traffic hit a record 400,000 tonnes, up 2.6 times from 2024, with 15 container transits, 36% growth. Tanker shipments dominated at 34 transits, while bulk and container vessels grew. Challenging ice conditions shortened the season, yet traffic rose 20% overall by October 2025. Plans for 2026 include expanded sailings, signalling China's strategic push. Finland's April 2023 and Sweden's March 2024 NATO accessions have enclosed the Baltic Sea, creating a NATO lake that operationally connects the Juk Gap to the Suwalki Gap. This integration enhances rapid reinforcements, bypassing vulnerabilities like the Suwalki Corridor. Russia's Kaliningrad enclave poses counter-threats, but NATO's unified posture deters escalation. The Northern Arc crystallizes 21st century geopolitics. Greenland's diplomatic escalations, minerals, and strategic gaps fuel future technologies, while Ukraine's sovereignty safeguards the present order. Amid Russo-Chinese challenges, this latitude demands balanced strategies, harnessing opportunities without igniting conflicts. Failure risks a new Cold War in thawing waters. With Tanbreeze advancing toward production, the U.S. Ukraine Fund operationalizing in 2026, and NSR transit setting records, the Arc's momentum underscores urgent needs for diversified supply chains and cooperative security. Thank you for watching Typographic Man on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe for more content.